Today on the episode, we have a surprise guest, the Millionaire Maker. Welcome to your Consulting Business Podcast. My name is Russell Pearson, and this is episode number 70. Now, today we have a surprise guest, and I say surprise guest because it was a surprise to me that I could actually get him on. But when opportunity knocks, you take advantage of it, and that's kind of a part of the conversation for today. But if you haven't subscribed already, if you're on YouTube, I'd love you to hit subscribe and then ring the bell so that you get notified when new episodes like this become available. If you're listening to this on the audio podcast, I'd love you to also subscribe and leave reviews. Love to see how we're doing and what you'd like to actually see different. You can always send me questions or give me some responses and feedback at russell@russellpearson.com. And we all know that they're spelled with double L and double S. Now today we've got it was a great surprise to get this guest on, and so I want to sort of set the precedence for it too, because it's a long conversation. We have a long conversation because I'm just interested in hearing the stories. I'm interested in hearing where we go with this conversation, and so this may be one that you might listen to or watch in a couple of different parts. That's absolutely fine by you. I'd be interested to know what you thought of the longer format and the sort of I guess it's a rambling style of conversation that we had. But you don't get a lot of opportunity to speak to this individual. He has not been as available as what he has been in the past to do this sort of interview. So I really appreciate him jumping on and having a conversation with me. But let me introduce him properly. In Australia, our next guest, I've got to remove the name, has been dubbed the Million Maker and the Napoleon Hill of the 21st century. He's arguably responsible for helping more first-generation millionaires and multi-millionaires in business than anyone else in Australia. He had 5 books. He's done all sorts of different businesses. He's currently sitting back, really enjoying life, with cash just continuing to roll in without actually doing any work, which is fantastic. He's been on the stage with everybody from Donald Trump to Richard Branson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Robert Kiyosaki, Anthony Robbins, Mark Burris, and a whole range of other individuals. He's best known for his marketing skills and for the hundreds of businesses in numerous different categories that he's been able to help. But I really, I heard about him years ago. He was one of the legends of the consulting and coaching industry, and in fact was one of the ones that helped found the industry here in Australia. So it was a great opportunity to get onto the show, Mel Emery. Mel, welcome to the call.
Pleasure to be here, Russell. Good to meet you.
Yeah, it's fantastic to have you here, and unexpected too. We sort of crossed paths, and I obviously knew of you and knew of a lot of your past from colleagues and even mentors in the past, but we've never actually spoken. And this was just a nice, lucky coincidence that we were able to have a catch up and hopefully have a good conversation. So pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure. Let's see if we can help a few people.
Absolutely. So I thought what I'd start with is maybe if you could just really quickly introduce where you're at this point in your business, and then maybe we can go back and see, how we got here.
Well, Russell, people ask simple questions. You think that is one, but it's a complex answer. And the complexity comes from making the world revolve around you. I have a name for it. It's called autonomy. Okay, people know about autonomy. They've heard about it or read about it, but very few understand it. And very few, in actual fact, set out to have it. And as a consequence, you can never achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
My autonomy will be totally different from someone else's. And it'll be different from yours. But what's important is that you get out a piece of paper or whatever you do, and you write down, what does autonomy look like? If you want a quick type of answer to that, it is doing what you want, with whom you want, when you want, getting paid what you want.
I love it.
But it also has a personal ring to it, which includes where you live, what lifestyle you achieve, what car you drive, for example, and I've got an Aston Martin out there in the driveway, which is as sexy as all hell. And I call it not in the driveway, in the garage. And I say to my wife, one wife, two girlfriends. And you know what the girlfriends are. One of them's that sexy beast out there. So that's all part of my autonomy. So when you say where you're at, I'm at a point in life where I do exactly what I want, when I want, with whom I want, and so on and so forth. And all of that has been meticulously strategized for the outcome I want. So I've got I turn over about 150,000 a week in one business that I don't do anything to do with. I'm not. It's my daughter going. I'm not. It's almost completely passive, apart from the marketing component, which is now set in stone to a large degree, although never set, but works without me, and so on and so forth. So that allows me to do whatever I want, and I still do strategic alliances, generally with ex-clients.
Mm-hmm.
That is because I'm not interested in educating people I'm going to work with. They've got to come to me predisposed to this thinking and this behaviour, which is uncommon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
On the subject of autonomy, people don't want you to have it. They know about it, they've read about it, they've heard about it, but they don't want you to have it. Now, my autonomy extends to my poor wife. So she knows what I want out of life. And that includes me fulfilling what she wants out of life. And one of the things was a farm. So recently I purchased her a farm. And I'm working my butt off on that farm. Because I'm pretty handy. I like building things, and she keeps me busy. She's a Chinese farmer, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife died of ovarian cancer. A lot of the guys know I bawled on stage in front of at least 1,000 people a couple of times. Lost it during the dark days of her decline,
Tough.
So it is, mate. Nothing quite prepared me for it. Life was perfect, and all of a sudden it wasn't.
Mm.
But anyway, we don't need to go there. So really, it has that sort of answer. So today I'm doing what I want with who I want, and it's all been designed.
Well, the funny thing
I
about this,
call it rigging the game. I call it rigging the game. I've got another. Sorry, man.
Oh yeah, they're rigging the game. The funny thing about this is that we didn't talk about this beforehand. I don't think you know much of my work, but it is almost all focused on having the freedom to work when you want, with whom you want, where you want. And so what I love about this is you're the pinnacle of the aspiration for that ideal, where you've got to a place now where you can do those things.
Well, thank you. But you need to know I was born broke with an alcoholic mother and father. And he was 55 when I was born.
Yeah,
so
wow.
I wasn't exactly, that's when it wasn't popular. And I wasn't exactly bounced on his knee. And importantly, I didn't have any entrepreneurial aspirations when I was young. I thought life was pretty good. I didn't know a different life existed. We were dead set poor. So later on in life, when I was fired by a multinational company called ACI Crown Corning at 22 or 21, my then wife said to me, I think you can start your own business. That was the first genesis of any of it. But the first thing I did is I sought out someone that was very successful already, knocked on his door and asked him to show me how to do what he's just done. Of course, I've made a history of not inventing fire because someone's already invented it.
So who was that?
Well, he's just passed away. He came to my 70th along with a bunch of other people like him. His name is Owen McGrath, or was. He owned a business called High Wycombe Hardware, and I built a house in his area. and his hardware store was extraordinary. The stock was stacked on the pavement. You could virtually trip over. It was stacked to the ceilings, and only him and Peggy knew where anything was. I bought a wheelbarrow and asbestos fencing and paint and stuff, all the things you do. Just put down a bore when you're a kid with no real money, and you're doing all this stuff. The house and land was $20,000, and I chose Owen because it was spectacular. You couldn't get in the door. He closed the door in your face at 1 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. Now, young guys like you probably don't even know that a hardware store never opened past 1 o'clock. And they're
I've
on
got the
every
young face.
yeah. So Owen knows there's no scarcity, and he took me under his wing. He spent my mother's $10,000 that I borrowed off her, mortgaged her house. I paid everybody back in 13 months, and I had $18,500 in the bank afterwards. And what that showed you, that a kid that failed everything at school, pretty much, without any formal education in terms of marketing and sales, which is the big secret, I was able to sell this sucker and make almost enough to pay off my house at 23.
Yeah, wow.
I know. And then I did another hardware store. It was Wanneroo Hardware. Paid 33 for that and sold it for 85. That's two houses. But I won the Walker Mule paint competition in the second hardware store for the state. In my first hardware store, I stacked the cans four cans high because that's all I could afford. But I put signs on them, Mission Brown. I painted Perth Mission Brown. Trust me. And my cans of paint, wash and wear, flat plastic, and Mission Brown were stacked to the roof, literally, in my second store, with signs on them and a discount and all that sort of stuff. So it really relates back to a simple question that most people don't ask, and they should ask it every day because they don't know it. I asked it without knowing what I was actually doing, because I read my first book at 41.
Yeah, okay.
And I only heard about the word marketing in my 40s, but I'd been doing it all along, and I'd already bought and sold 13 businesses. And I did it out of intuition. So the first question is, you must ask, and I can be more articulate with it today, because it's, how can I get them to buy with me as opposed to each and every other competitor in my category or niche? Now, I can stump 99.9% of businesses, big and small, right there. Or I get pathetic, plain vanilla answers that won't achieve anything. So I was asking that question. So the original one was, how can I get them to shop with Swanview Hardware as opposed to Midland Hardware, which was the big guy just down the road? And that question has never changed. It's become my reasoning back then. My selfishness was providing for my family, not going broke. Okay, but now
Can I touch on something there?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I think it's important what you said there, which is like, how can I get them to shop with us, right? And that's what that's not is, how do I build a website that does that? How do I have a hook that does that? How do I create an ad that does that? No, it's not that. Don't rail yourself in. Like, how broadly can I get these people to shop with me instead of those other people? And
correct. And then you build the website accordingly.
Yeah, if that's the way. Yeah.
This is not how people do business, though, Russell. That's not how they price either. They build it in the hope that they will come. And of course, The Field of Dreams was a movie, because they won't come. And I see it endlessly. So if you want a secret, would you like a secret?
Sure, I'll take it.
Yeah, right. If you want to predict the future, understand the present. Okay, now, when it came to being rich or poor, it was me moving away from being broke. So I call myself a moving away guy. And there was a time when I had the biggest coaching program, and I was 103 kilos. I'm now 84, 85. So I turned to my wife in Adelaide, had a 2 or 3 day event there, nearly a couple of hundred in the room, on a Saturday night, having dinner in the hotel. And I said, I'm done. I'm out. I'm cooked. This whole thing, the travel, the speaking on stage with Branson and Trump and all of these guys, Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, it's all wonderful, but it's highly flawed. From perspective of lifestyle, it's terrible. And living out of hotel rooms and airports, as romantic as that sounds, it soon loses its romanticism. And then I sold it, which generally speaking you can't do, but I got a lot of money for it. So just coming back to where
I was
we
going
were.
to say, let me like go put a little piece in the middle, because you've got all these businesses that you're buying and selling. Completely understand that, and what I love about it is you built the one you saw the opportunity, you had your mentor, and you went from there. Flash forward, you have a coaching business. You have your are you coaching coaches or coaching business people?
Both. I literally introduced the coaching industry to the country. Very few coaches existed when I did this, Russell.
Well,
People
when was it?
people didn't take on coaches, mate.
Well, they didn't get the word at all, other than the tennis coach or something like that.
Well, it was governments and people like that. But today it's one of the fastest, well, it has been for a long time, growing industries on the planet. There was a time when no one, other than possibly a sports person, had a coach or
Yeah.
a mentor. So I got to do all of that. Usually they came to me thinking they'll solve one problem, which we did, um, generally speaking, and then we took them to another world where I introduced the coaching business. That has a name as well. It's called Sell Your Success to Someone That Wants It More Than You did. You do.
I like that.
Well,
The other thing that's interesting there is so you showed them your success. Completely get, like, that's understandable. Did you? I assume at the start you didn't think of yourself as a coach
no.
because it wasn't a thing, right? So
Correct.
yeah, so was it? Do you think more of a mentor, more of a consultant, I guess, and then it evolved into something different? Because the transformational side of coaching is something that certainly consultants rarely look at, let alone mentors, helping someone out.
Well, I was successful enough and people got wind of me. I was called an operator.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I could, because I didn't, that was the last hardware store I did, and I was in my 20s. Since then, my philosophy is getting a racing car, not a jalopy. By definition, that is, someone will pay me a truckload of money for it. That's all it is. I'm predicting the future.
Yep.
Okay. So that would be how I select what I do next. And I'd take, 2, 3, 4, even 6 months off between businesses. But people started to get wind of what I was doing, and people would, sit inside my businesses and watch me operate and all those sorts of things. Even though, well, from that point of view, they'd seen the success. The lecturer on marketing at the Murdoch University saw what I did to a shopping centre, a small shopping centre, because rising tide lifts all boats. So I
Yep.
took everyone on the ride. I took the liquor store with Coles, I took the video library, I took the butcher, I took, everybody came on the ride with me because rising tide lifts all boats. Now, I didn't even know the guy lived in the area. And he saw me turn a whole shopping centre on. Okay. And he sent the kids after me, and they researched me for a year. I said, yes, you can find it online if you look hard enough. They came to a conclusion. Mel Emery is an entrepreneur. Thanks very much. I needed to be told that.
Thank you
That's
very much.
okay. It was a wonderful thing to do. So, I got into racing cars because I could sell them for a lot of money. And when that happened, people started knocking on my door and asking me, people like the university guy, the
Yeah.
lecturer, sent kids after me and so on and so forth. And then I went and saw a dear friend of mine, he'll remain anonymous because he's one of the heads of .com Australia these days. And I said to him, he was a lawyer at the time, and I said to him, I'm thinking of starting this coaching business to help people because people are knocking on my door. You're asking about the transition.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, I know where we're sitting. I know the name of the restaurant. And he looked across the table and he said, where's your qualifications? And at that point in time, it set me back 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And then I went, hang on a minute. I got the best qualifications of the bloody lot. I know how to put green grass under a business like most people don't. And then I know how to sell it and build it to sell it and buy it based on selling it. And just maybe, well, a whole pile of people might be interested. So Chris held me back because he came from Mr. Professional BS, piled PhD, piled higher and deeper, MBA, more bad advice. Notwithstanding, they're good people and it's good to have them around from time to time, but I revolutionised most marketing degrees that arrived in my door.
Yeah.
Quite clearly, and they're very grateful for that. So yeah, that sort of gives you an idea of where the transition was. And then, of course, the next question you might like to ask me is, how the hell did I dominate it from scratch?
Well, but before, if we're talking about how to dominate it, like how many people were up and coming at this point in time? Because I'd imagine it's just starting to get some steam. Maybe the US is starting to get going with the. In fact, I don't even really know where the coaching sort of phenomenon really started up. Was it the US? Was it Australia? Where were the competitors? What was going on at the time? I'm interested in that.
Yeah, well, around about that time, I started going to the US because when I was running my other businesses, again, I was trying to predict the future. So I would get control of a business, and then I would hop on a plane, and we didn't have the internet, and I'd do my research because a minute earlier we didn't close a loop there, which was how I predict the future, and I do it by understanding the present, but importantly, it's the research I do in order to do that. So if I just use that example, it's a coffee shop on the main street of Perth in Hay Street. And I bought it for $30,000. The guy who started it and called it Sizzlings put 250K into it and closed the doors because he didn't know what he was doing, an Irishman. It was advertised for $80,000 by a guy called Harry Boson. And on the phone, Harry offered me the keys. Years later, I said, well, why did you give me the keys? He said, I knew you were an operator when you opened your mouth. So this is about my 12th business at this stage. And I offered him 30 grand and I wanted 6 months free rent from the Freecorn family next door who had the supermarket, or they didn't have it, they owned the premises.
Yeah.
And I blanked out the window first day with a new food concept opening soon. I didn't know what I was going to do.
I love that.
Well, yeah, I knew what I was going to do, though. I hopped on a plane. I flew to Melbourne and I saw that incredible shopping centre, the Japanese one. I don't think it's there anymore. It's a huge Daewoo or Daewoo.
Oh, yeah. Daimaru.
Daimaru, that's it. Thank you. And I saw big shopping centres with food halls and things, and we didn't have one here. I knocked off a whole pile of products. One I called, let me think. Yeah. Yeah, I'll get it. I put a dollop of sour cream on these chips and some chives, and I called them wasn't Sweet Lips. I'll get it in a minute. But anyway, people virtually travelled from Perth. I won't tell you the full story, but I sold that for 230 in 5 months with 1 month free rent still remaining.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. So, but if you look at what I did and how I did it, it takes you inside what goes on. This is not how most people do businesses. I bought another business and I said to the guy, I want to survey your clients before I buy it, but I'll pay your price. Why do I pay his price, Russ? Because I know what I'm going to get for it. I know what I'm going to sell it for. And the day I took control with the survey, I knew what to do with the business. This is not how people do it.
Yeah. Where's the problem?
But, again, for this industry alone, my people did 100 hours research to predict, to understand the fears, the frustrations, the wants, desires, and needs of the coaching industry. And I've got the whole thing. Now, that was later on, much later on than when I first invented it, because it's available to us online. We can do all the research in the world.
Yeah.
Not one, you pick your competitors, you find out what they're saying on their websites, what they're selling, what their clients are saying, join the Facebook groups, and you'll understand this whole thing. And I do, when I was towards the end of my career, I would insist anyone that I coached, we did that. I didn't do it, but I had the dynamics and the understanding of getting it done. Again, not how most people do business, but this is just me predicting the future.
So, quick question about that, because there's a useful piece there, in particular, which is like, all right. So, back in the day, a few less competitors, other organizations, sometimes less competitors. Right now, probably one of the more competitive spaces, coaching and consulting. And consulting's, been around probably a little longer, but there's a lot of facelessness, right, to the amount of coaches and consultants that there are out there. How do you pick your competitors?
Oh, it's endless, to be quite honest with you. Any niche we care to attack. Again, that's a subject that should be put on the table. There's always competitors in those niches kicking ass and taking names.
So how do you know that? I guess the question then comes like, how do you identify that they are kicking ass? Because sometimes what's on the face value is not what's happening behind the scenes. And do you just pick the ones that seem to be or are doing the best, and they're the ones to compete with? I remember hearing a thing about compete with people locally, and you've done yourself a disservice. Look globally and see where people are actually succeeding. What are your thoughts on picking a competitor?
Well, mate, I generally send other people after that problem. Could be interested in sitting on a computer and doing it. It's being able to what's the word when you ask other people to do it?
Delegate.
Delegate. My best mate says I'm a professional delegator. I'd say I'm lazy. I don't want to do that work. I don't want to do the grunt work. So, because there's no money in it, but I do understand enough to know who to pay. Because again, I trained a lot of people, and some started with me as clients, and then they became what they needed to become. So I, can turn to these people who charge me accordingly.
Of course. But you did it back in
So
the day. You did it when you started. Like, did you go and say, all right, who are the big fish? How do I see what they're doing well, and then where are the gaps?
yeah. Well, it's all there on the internet if you search for it, and that you've got to have the questions.
Yes.
If you don't have the questions, of course, you never know. But I gave it to you guys. It's fears, frustrations, wants, desires, and needs.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it nails it. And I've done it in niche after niche. And no one's demanded this is how we do it. Because I don't, everyone's got a couple of armpits, and every time I think I'm right, I'm wrong. If I try and predict the client, I'm right, and I'm savvy, and I'm wrong. So I don't take any chances. I want to rig the game completely. No drama and problem in business. I got a wife and a couple of daughters and a son that I don't speak to, I've got enough problems elsewhere. You know, I don't need shit in business.
Don't need that at all.
No place for drama in business. There is no place for drama.
And that's an interesting thing too, because there's a lot of people at the moment going, all right, well, do I build and sell? All right, so I build for exit, and they're obviously that's something you've done a lot of, or do I build for autonomy, like build to a point where I can actually, I know it's probably both, but build around me. So the concept of the practice that runs around you versus the business that runs without you.
Well, again, it comes back to principles. And here's one of the most important principles of all. And that is, number one, you're an investor, not just a business owner.
Yeah.
And as an investor, I still have to run ads, and I still have to satisfy my clients, and I still have to pay my bills. I do all the things that all the rest of them do, but I get the options they never get, generally speaking. And I get the question to ask every day they don't ask. I'll tell you what that is. If I do that, paint the building, whatever it is, run that online, whatever, build that seminar, do that. Will that help me sell this business for $10 million or $200,000 or whatever it might be? Because then I have options that they don't get. Now, number one, I get the question they don't have. If I do that, will it allow me to sell it? Now, do you have to sell it? No. Can you license it? Yes. Can you franchise it? Yes. Can you keep it and not work in it? Yes. Can you sell it for a truckload of money? Yes. I mean, you get the options that the ordinary bloke doesn't get because he didn't start with the end in mind and have the questions in the first place to set you free. And it's all based on autonomy.
And so the pathway to autonomy, obviously you had some expertise from learning the trade of buying and selling businesses and going through that process, became good at it. You look at a consultant today, they still need to be very good at what they do. We can't just market and sell our way out of it, can we?
Well, I advocate your products and services must be transformational.
There you go.
All right. Now, you're robbing somebody if you're not. However, I don't play God and I don't sit in judgment on my clients. I say, you fix that shit. I'm not interested. I assume you know what you're doing. Russell, I've asked a room of 1,000 people who thinks they have a great product or service. Guess what happens?
Everyone puts their hand up.
Correct. But we know they're not. But they all think they are. So they're all good people with nice families and nice houses and nice cars, but they're dumb and relatively broke.
Well, yeah, and you hear the reasons why they've got such a great service. It's because we care, or it's because of our people, or it's because we're more diligent than other people, or whatever it might be. But there's no real points of difference.
Yeah, again, one of the things I wrote down today is differentiation. It's where it has to start. And I've revolutionized businesses that have become, well, possibly billion-dollar businesses by a simple differentiation that took me 6 minutes. You want to know what those questions are?
Yes.
Again, well, why should I buy from you?
Yeah.
No one can answer it. And when they can't answer it, the next question becomes, what's your client's biggest fears, frustrations, wants, desires, and needs? So it ties the loop up.
Yes.
And then they give me that list, and then I then prescribe the solution. And that's an actual example of a business that's very, very successful today who were losing their shirt. And they knew someone that knew me. And I went in there and sold it in 5 seconds flat. And today they are embarrassed by their wealth. That's from the wives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can name names if you want, but probably not necessary. No one needs to know who it is. They
No.
did go on national TV. They did say, we invented this guarantee. They didn't invent it, I did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the
Yeah.
guarantees are good one, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, again, it answered the question on the tip of the tongue of your prospect and then solved the problem for them.
Yeah, and that's something that I see a lot of consultants who are they see a risk in that, right? They see a massive risk in the promise or the guarantee. But if you're not willing to give the promise or the guarantee, like, are you doing enough to be transformational? Are you doing enough to be good enough to actually deserve that business? That's
Well,
my perspective.
my mob know if you can't guarantee it, don't sell it.
Yeah.
Go somewhere else. You've got no right to sell it. You've
Mm.
lost that. And you've also lost the right to complain because, you should back your products up.
Yeah, 100%. Now,
My guarantee was I had a lifetime guarantee. I mean, at my peak, um, I mean, I think it was about 60K. And I had a double your money back guarantee.
oh really?
Yeah, yeah, really. I could find the slide, but it said, here's what you got to do.
Yes, you got to do these things. Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, I won't be the problem. You will. I want them up front before I signed up.
Mhm.
And but there was also a plain and ordinary what your guys probably won't even guarantee was 60-day 100% money back guarantee if you haven't found the right place. If you don't like where I'm going to take you and you decide it's not right for you, please, money back. Not
Yeah.
interested. And keep all the stuff and enjoy the seminars. All this is usually from my feet or in my, articulated in my sales material.
Mm.
And I had a brilliant close for the coaching program, which was an expression, a serious expression of interest. I think I pioneered all that back in the day. And yeah, I could show it to you, but it doesn't matter.
What I
It's
like
a
about
world,
that. Go on, you go.
it's a world-class close. That's what it is.
Oh, now I want to see it.
Yeah, well, makes sense. Like if I switch it over to me, I can show it to you. But I just
Uh,
want to
we
close
can.
a loop for you.
Yeah, yeah, do.
And that is the coaches, they should set out to sell it for a ton of dough from day one. And then what happens is you do the things that you need to do to help your clients as a mandatory process in order for you to get what you want. So again, begin with the end in mind. You're predicting the future. So it doesn't matter who they are. You should build it to sell it. And of course, they're very saleable. I've got guys that have sold all sorts of businesses, including online, for a lot of money for these very reasons that we set out to do it.
Yeah. So the point you're absolutely making is that even if you don't have any ambition to sell it at any point in time, build
Exactly.
it to sell because it'll give you options.
It'll give you the perfect business and options.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And the thing I love about the guarantees as well is that it's very freeing. I find putting a guarantee because suddenly it makes everything very clear. All right. Well, what is my job is to do is to keep this promise. What my
Yeah.
job is to do is enable the client to keep their promise, and
Yeah.
it becomes a little bit easier in what are we doing here?
Well, again, I said to them, if I wake up 3 nights in a row uh, thinking about you and I'm not sleeping with you, someone's going to get fired and I can't fire me. I'm
Yeah,
stuck
yeah,
with
yeah.
you. So that means you're out the door. So I warned them. Now, what I want to explain to you, if I could just take us in this direction. And again, I taught a lot of these people you know of today. I explained to them that you needed to invent a fictional character and become it. So who you're seeing now is not me. You're seeing, this is quite advanced, Russell. You're seeing who I want you to see. And if you think Trump's not letting you see that or someone like them, you're kidding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they are. So you create a fictional character based on what your marketplace wants to see as a coach and consultant. And it is self-anointment. I used to say to them, I actually signed documentation for them. I gave them, plaque type written. I used very hieroglyphics and all sorts of language back in the day to anoint them. I said, I've anointed you. All right, we're done. We're cooked now. All right. So, because they needed it. So where I started out, I thought, what does the marketplace want? Well, they want no bull.
Mm-hmm.
They're sick of all the plain vanilla and people that'll take their money and deliver very little. So I became this fictional character that is in all my writings and everything I've done and in all my books and all of that. It's this no bull, show you the money guy. And that's exactly what the marketplace wanted. So what these folks have to do is figure out who they need to become, not who they are, but their market want them to be. And what does that character look like? And then you live into it and become that, often with your guarantee associated with it. So, it was all a deliberate move on my part in wanting to dominate the marketplace. And it is self-anointment.
Yeah, there's a that we could go really deep, and we probably don't have time today to go into that side of things. But where is it? So when I talk about identity a hell of a lot, like we discuss, who you are, what does the market want you to be, where is the spectrum in between those two lines. You're just saying go to where the market wants you to be, but there's so many different characters, right? So what's the gap in the market? I think is probably a question worth asking as much as anything else.
Well, I always want someone to be doing what I'm already doing and kicking ass and filling up his bank account.
Okay, so it's more about be the aspiration.
Well, it's so easy to outmarket everybody. It's a joke. So I couldn't care less. Again, this is called mastery. So to become who I wanted to become, I had to master a whole bunch of skills that I hadn't mastered. And that's why I hopped on a plane and went and saw the Dan Kennedys of this world. And I'm very proud to say Dan calls me his friend. He tells people I'm his friend. But what were those things I mastered that I recognized? Number one, as a consultant or coach, you should write a book. Because the marketplace, when you write a book, they think you know what you're doing. You can be an absolute bloody idiot and someone else could have written it, but they think you know what you're doing. What the most important thing on that book is the title.
Yeah.
The title. My first book, Your Right to Be Rich, world bestseller, and including America, sold over 10,000 copies, I think it was, in America when it was books, not online stuff.
The world wants you to be an expert, so prove it. And there's the evidence.
Well, they think you are. And the other thing is taking to your feet. Now, I'm a guy that couldn't read in school and I couldn't spell. And I was made to stand up in front of my class by my teachers, which is, abuse by another language, and made to read. So I shook and anxiety and all sorts of stuff trying to read. And so I would not walk past a bookstore for the first 20, 30 years of my life. No, 30, 40 years of my life. Afraid of books, finished up with 5 bestsellers. So for me to speak, and I'd never said my name in public until I was 40.
Yep.
ever. So I just went about my business and minded my own business and did this stuff. But then when I wanted to help people, I had to get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. There's a
So,
difference. Yeah.
but this, there's that ability to do it. So my wife booked me into a lady called Molly McLeod, who also came to my 70th, and I would be Molly's most successful student if you class success based on helping people and making a truckload of money doing it. I'm it. Molly couldn't teach me what I turned this thing into. Molly gave me the framework to stop, to give me the ability to stop fainting on stage, because I had 2 panic attacks. Once was in front of 10,000 people. I made the mistake of opening the curtains and looking out. It was a, and I started speaking a different language that no one understood. It felt like it lasted forever. What happens is the last thing that dies on you is your brain. So the body tries to save your brain. So it sends the blood to your head. And so the blood leaves your feet and your legs. So you get wobbly and stuff.
Oh, I've had the experience. Like the first time I spoke in public to more than 200 people, I got what I call the Charlie Browns, which is, if you know that cartoon, the teacher at the front of the Charlie Brown cartoons speaks like wah 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 wah, and I could hear my own voice in my own ears just going, sounding like that, and I'm like, oh no,
Yeah,
we're in trouble here. I leaned against
yeah,
the lectern and allowed a video to play and took a few breaths, and I was able to get through it. But
yeah.
at the end of that presentation, I was disappointed I'd have to do it again and again and again.
Well, I still sold like the Watsons, mate. I overcame the problem, and those that hate selling, I mean, they're wrong. I mean, the so-called professional speakers who don't like me, because I've spoken at this professional speakers crowd, and the room
Yep.
parts. There's a bunch over here that go, that's terrible what he does. And then the other side go, I'm sick of working for, $800 or $400 a talk or something, or even the best $5,000. I won't cross the road for it.
Yeah.
You And that mob come to me, or whatever it might be.
You and Alan Weiss both. We had Alan on here. It is. It's very much the same scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I sold big ticket though. I was the dearest product seller on the stage with Trump. Mine
Yep.
was 7 or 8 grand. Um, I won't tell you what I did that day in sales, but it was pretty sexy. Um, I was big ticket on my feet to strangers,
Yep.
and that means you need $1 million closes.
Mm.
And I perfected all that um, by doing the work.
So I'm going to wrap it a bit. So writing the book, getting on your feet and presenting, getting on stage or platforms of whatever sort. What's one or two of the other keys?
Character to match the market. Fictional character. When I said to my guys, I've made myself up. You should have seen the look on their faces, man, honestly. And then when the penny started to drop, oh shit, that's how you do it. I said, I'm really a nice guy, I wouldn't fire you for the world, but this fictional character,
that guy had to do what he had to do. Yeah.
he'll kick you out the door. And I've made the
Yes, a
phone.
character.
Yeah, I've also rung them up and told them they're not dressing correctly. And I've made the tough calls, and you'd know them who I rang. I said, the character doesn't match up, boys and girls,
Yeah.
And I'm affectionate.
It's interesting. This one that you're talking about right now, the character piece. A lot of people don't like to hear it. You're 100% right. The question is whether you can, whether the character is the character that they need right now, just happens to be in a space where you can already evolve into, so it makes it a lot easier, or whether you actually need to put a mask on and be someone else. But if you're not that, they're not going to buy.
Well, it comes back to, why do you want to be rich and successful? That comes back to that. So you might ask me that question. So it's in my slides. So why do I want to be rich? A, it's better. It's a lot better. Okay, anyone that tells you that cattle class is okay, you know, they haven't flown business class.
Better to be rich than poor. Tick.
Better to be better. It's who you become. My 3 reasons. Number 2 is who you become. So look what I've done to myself to be this person who couldn't speak, and to be the coach of the coaches and charge what I charged. And they all tell me my threads go everywhere. I still talk to them today, some of them. You know, they say, you know, you wouldn't believe how far your threads go. And I use your language all the time, even your bad jokes, you know. So you take yourself with you wherever you go. So I had to become this other person in order to help a lot of people and help myself. So how can you find fault with that? If that meant you had to create a character in order that they came on the journey to match model, well, so be it.
Well, it's be to have. Yeah, it's like, who do you need to be, and where you either need to be them now or become them over time. You know, it's you get to choose, and then do as you get up and speak. You hold that position. You write the book. Anything else?
Number 3 is who you help. Okay, now in my case, I came home one day and my wife was standing in our parterre French garden and she had a look on her face. I got a call from my secretary, Karen, who runs my office, or used to, and I was out having lunch at the Italian club with Alan Hewitt, who'd been a client for 10 years at that stage. And he was buying me lunch and I ordered duck and I never eat duck. And my lunch arrived and my phone rang and Karen said, you need to go home. That night at roughly 5 o'clock, her doctor said to me and her that your wife has 3 to 5 years to live. It turned out to be 3.5 or something like that. Everything you knew to be real at that moment changed completely, turned upside down. So my wife went alternative. She came from the medical industry. She would not tolerate or entertain chemotherapy or anything like that. And she went another program which cost, my whole house got turned into a fruit and veggie factory. She committed to a regime that most people couldn't even entertain. My garage was full of fridges and organic fruit and vegetables. And my life, finding a spot to have dinner at night time was lucky. It was upside down. Now, another point there is I drove out of the driveway, departmentalized, and still delivered better than I've ever delivered in my life. My wife needed me to, because it was very expensive. Okay, yeah. But more importantly, this is how I express it, Russell. My clients don't care if I'm terminal.
Yeah, okay.
I took their effing money. Get over it, princess. And deliver. Okay, it's not their problem. They were very sympathetic, and some of them flew around the country to help me because it got very grim a few times, towards the end in particular.
So does that lesson be about the client?
I'm not with you, sorry, Russell.
So is that lesson about choosing the right clients, or is that lesson really more about it's about the client?
Well, don't ever take everyone's money. Every time I ask a room, have you taken money from people when your intuition told you not to?
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
What was that like? So I do such, I make them qualify.
Yeah, qualify those clients. Yeah.
I make them qualify, but this wasn't always my position. In the end, my position became my position. This is called positioning. The whole thing's based on positioning and making the book behave how you want it to behave, including clients. And the best clients are always the highest paying clients, as we know. So, you know, again, I was doing this for the good of all concerned.
Yeah.
Primarily me, you know, because I could help them. And I warned them, you know, because I had to live into the character.
That's right.
Yeah.
And just this is just a bit of a personal question. Was it easier to put the character on when you needed to, given the situation you were in, than it would have been to try and be you the whole time and then trying to get up on stage and just be you in that moment?
Well, I wouldn't have achieved anything, and no one would have bought from that person. And
Yeah,
then I could, because there was an exchange of value, which the professional speakers send them away excited and they remember their names. But I sell them a product and have a chance of changing their lives.
yeah.
You know, probably know Paul Blackburn. You know, Paul Blackburn and I spoke for the, what's his name? I put him on his feet first too. Sorry, I just can't get him nipping that guy. And he asked me to speak at an event in the Sydney Convention Centre thing. And I got Paul and a bunch of my people Paul was already a speaker, but he wasn't earning the money. I've got an email from him saying, thank you for freeing me from 20 years of being dumb and broke. I just had $1 million a year. But on this particular occasion, they had an award for the most popular speaker. Guess who won it?
Oh, I'm going to guess it's you.
Paul. No, Paul.
Oh, Paul. Yeah, okay.
Paul. But he's scripted and he's funny and all of this, and he always was before he met me, but I showed him how to make money out of it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, right? Guess what I won?
What?
Sales.
Yeah.
I cleaned up. So he came up to me and he said, I wish I could do a shit talk like Mel Emery.
yeah, that's it. Oh,
Bloody gold. You can't deny any of this. It's all true. People were there. You know, you read your bloody PowerPoints, you know, whereas he's funny and charismatic and they loved him and they clapped him, and I took the money home. And I changed the pots.
I'm going to ask you just one more question. Outside of autonomy being the goal, aiming to build the business for sale, and doing those things you need to do to, number one, be the person that people want to buy from, but then be the person who gets to help people. Is there anything different that people need to be looking at these days? That, you know, the world has changed a little bit, you've got to admit. And has the game changed at all? Or really is it these same principles?
No, because what you're talking about is we're dealing with the reptilian brain. And in 1,000 years from now, what I'm talking about is still going to be current. Love, greed, guilt, fear, and pride. 5 emotions. Do you think that's going to change? You know, the only reason I chased my wife around that coffee table over there is my reptilian brain, the poor woman. Now, lucky for me, she doesn't run too fast, Russell. Okay, she lets me, you know, the poor girl. But we've got that all wrong, terribly wrong. And if you could correct yourself along the way, because it's not true. What changes is the media or mediums you're using. That's all that changes. And the internet is the media. It is not a business. And that's why guys like me who know how to write copy, there's one of the other things, become a master of marketing and a master of copywriting.
Yep.
You know, along with speaking on your feet, writing a book or whatever. That's it. You know, mastery. Money loves mastery. So I mastered the things that were important to money to move in your direction. I call it the dance of money, the only dance I do. You know? So it's quite simple, really. I mean, people mess all this up. Is there anything I've said that's not almost commonsensical today? But
no, it's spot on. And I think that the point that we were making before about, like, people are looking through smaller funnels, or they're looking at tighter areas, like, how do I do it with the internet? We forget the internet. How do I do it? And then, is the internet one of the tools? You know, back in the day, I used to do direct marketing, and it'd take a week to do, a week to send, a week to return, a week to go back. Now you can do it in 4 minutes with a landing page.
Yeah, blessed. But I'm not completely convinced of its blessedness. That's another story. But, you know, you need to dominate all media. But here's another one for you: circumvent the internet, because someone owns the sandpit you're trying to play in. Number one is a very dangerous number in business. I taught my mob, you know, one product, one service, one media is the most dangerous of all, because I've watched them get wiped out when they ignore me.
Yeah,
You know,
diversity.
so in all my businesses, I circumvent. So, you know, I've done it for my daughter in her businesses. You know, I want to circumvent the internet. I'm a master of pop-ups in shopping centres. I'm a master of expos. I can kill it. I can pull it. I've got it, you know, on my wagon.
And so
I can
what I
pull
want to just, I'm going to close this out. I'd love to speak to you again. I'd like to close this out, but really what we're saying is, how do you need to get it done, and then just go and get it done, is rather than like look at trends and tactics that people are using on the micro and try and funnel your opportunity through that. Look at the actual client and look at what it is that's actually going to make them look to you as the option that they're going to choose.
Yeah, look, you know, unfortunately, they don't understand business principles. So you've got tactics. That's what everyone does, which is very selfish. I want some clients in my coffee shop today, and you put a loyalty card out there or something. You know, they don't care that you want to buy a new car, or nor should they, or that you want to send your kids to private school. So tactics are necessary, and it's a necessary part of everything we do. But tactics are driven by strategy. Okay, and they don't understand strategy. I created a thing called Mel Emery's Web of Wealth. This is after I shut the business, okay? And it's a real web, spider's web. And in the middle is utopia or autonomy. Surrounding on the outside of this web, it's like a real web, you know, it's got the web, is all the tactics I could think of. And then the next thing is all the strategies I could think of. And guess what drives strategy? Principle. And I've designed 43 of them. Okay? And that drives autonomy. And that's never seen the light of day other than a dozen people.
Well, this is the thing, right? So I'm going to wrap this up, but how can people get more of Mel Emery at this point in time?
I don't really know. I mean,
you've got energy, like there's nothing wrong there. It's autonomy, I guess.
Well, but you know, see, my autonomy says this: no clients, no product, no staff.
Yeah.
That's my autonomy. So, you know, clients are a giant pain in the ass. And I tell them so. And I won't be the problem, and I will fire you, you know, but there's a bunch that adore me and love me and will forever because of that bluntness and hearing it as they, you know, they tell me today, you know, they saw me on stage and they went, some guys go, I don't like that bloke, you know, and then because that's fine with me, but others went, you know what? I really get this guy. He's calling it as it is. He's telling it as it is. So again, what do I do about that? One of my clients who I've made independently wealthy has a book that's sold hundreds of thousands of copies. And he said, Mel, anytime you're ready, I'll put you on Amazon. All I want to know is what the title is and tell me what to do with it. And it's all business. And he said, this is recent, you know. And he said, just tell me when, and it'll go out to hundreds of thousands of people. So if you can tell me or provide me with a product I can wrap around that, where I don't, and, you know, it requires, I love strategic alliances.
Yeah.
Some people that are smarter than me at what they do. And I'm open to that conversation that could tempt me into creating something that would be worthwhile to others. So it's a shame that what you're hearing today is generally not available.
Mm. No, I'm going to say to the listening audience and the people potentially watching on YouTube, um, uh, you heard what Mel said. There's things he's interested in. He is on social media because that's how I came across him. You do your own research, and you may be able to actually connect with Mel at some point and maybe have a chat. But Mel, I just want to thank you very much for being on the show. I don't know if I can get you back because there's plenty we could talk about, but is there anything you want to end on?
Oh, not really. I just, hope that why I'm here is because, we're talking about my life's work,
Yeah.
in essence. And, I've got that many seminars and it's still current. It's up the wazoo. It doesn't matter if it's speaking on your feet, copywriting, effortless selling. All of them are groundbreaking. It's written in the same way and presented in the same way. I'm presenting this here today in a sense. So I'd rather see it. So I just gave 3 boxes of my books away to a consultant who's cutting business. I've just had 3 people knock on my door in a sense through contacts, and they've got the books, and I gave them a pile of them. They've sent me pictures of their friends reading them. I'd rather it was out in the ether
That's it.
than me keeping it a secret, Russell. So I don't know, mate. Just mastery.
Yeah, yeah.
Money loves mastery. I mastered the things that were critically important, and I've literally put it on a plate, cut in bite-sized pieces today for the folk to just go and do it.
Well, Mel, thank you very much for the conversation today.
Pleasure.
Go and search up Mel's stuff. I'm sure the things online, and there's more you can take advantage of. So I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Wasn't that a fascinating conversation? And look, the question was, do I shorten it up or do I leave it as is? And I think that the best opportunity is just to leave it raw and give you the opportunity to actually get the full experience of Mel and what he's all about. Now, in some spaces, do I agree with everything he's saying? Well, in some areas, especially the branding piece, I do believe that you need to become the leader in your industry if you actually want to be the person who has that big business and makes the money and makes the impact that they want to have. But do you need to fake it till you make it? Well, that's a question for yourselves. I think that actually the opportunity is within each of us to step out and become the person that our audience wants us to be. But sometimes it's not obvious who that person should be right at the beginning. So I think it's sometimes there's some important work that needs to be done to identify who we are before we decide who we want to be for other people. But it is an opportunity, and look, Mel knows what he's talking about. The success and the runs on the board that he talks about are factual, and that's the great thing, that you can always hang your hat on results. And I think that's an important reminder for each and every one of us. If you haven't already, I would love you to subscribe to the channel. And if you also were interested last week when I talked about the Consulting Guild and the group of consulting professionals that we're putting together, the 100, and you're interested to know a little bit more about that, what does that look like? What does it mean for you? How do you get involved? You can go to theconsultingguild.com, and we'll have that in the show notes too. You'll be able to click on that link and go and check it out and put in an expression of interest. We'll send you all the details, and then you can decide if that's something that you would like to become a part of. Until next time, my name's Russell Pearson. Stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.